Have you ever just looked at a map and imagined not just the miles you'd have to cross, but how that actual journey might completely change you from the inside out? Well, today we're exploring an ancient text that asks exactly that. Can a map lead you not just to physical places, but to spiritual salvation?
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a really fascinating piece of source material, a super dense ancient text, and we're basically translating it into a spiritual travelogue. We'll be walking through a landscape where every single river, lake, and mountain holds some kind of profound otherworldly power. Okay, let's dive right into this. To make sense of this ancient map, we first need to understand the core concept that drives the entire text, and that is the tirtha. A tirtha is a sacred spot, usually a water body or a crossing place where the physical and spiritual worlds literally intersect. It's not just a spot on a map, it's almost like a portal to something much higher. So here is our itinerary for today's explainer. First, we'll map out these ancient sacred spaces, head over to the waters of Narmada, climb the peaks of legend and myth, visit the retreats of the ascetics, and finally, we'll arrive at Pushkara for a pretty profound final revelation.
Starting with Section 1, Mapping Ancient Sacred Spaces, Dhaumya's Guide to the West.
Our source material is actually framed as a massive direct conversation. It's a guide provided by the sage Dhaumya, and he's speaking directly to a king named Yudhishthira, who is referred to here as Bharata. He's specifically charting out the sacred spots lying in the western region, which was an ancient kingdom called the Anarttas. So he's essentially just drawing this incredible verbal map of spiritual hotspots for the king to follow.
Section 2, The Waters of Narmada, Nature and the Divine.
The very first physical location Dhaumya describes is the sacred river Narmada. And the text paints this incredibly lush, sensory picture of the river flowing westward, graced by pryangu and mango trees, and wrapped in these thick canes. But notice the beings flocking to this river. We're not just talking about locals looking for a pretty nature spot. The absolute heavyweights of ancient mythology. We're talking the creator himself, alongside celestial beings and enlightened sages. They all come to bathe in these sacred waters. It's literally a cosmic gathering place.
And the Narmada region holds some deep historical and mythological significance within this text. For instance, it mentions that the sacred asylum of Muni Visravas stood right here. Why does that matter? Well, because this was the birthplace of Kuvera, the Lord of Treasures. And the text drops this wild, super specific detail. It describes Kuvera as having men for his vehicles. It's just this beautifully surreal image that really drives home the ancient, otherworldly power embedded in this landscape. Moving on to Section 3, Peaks of Legend and Myth, Vaidurya and Viswamitra. Now, what's really interesting about this part of the map is how densely packed these geographical features are with mythical power. Dhaumya takes us from the rivers up to the Vaidurya peak, which is covered in green trees, fruit, and flowers. Right at the top, there's a sacred tank full of lotuses that the gods visit. The text actually goes as far as saying it is like unto heaven itself. Then you've got the renowned Punya Lake, the legendary Mainaka Mountain, and Ascetic Mountain, which is just overflowing with fruits and roots. The landscape here is this perfect provider of both physical sustenance and serious spiritual elevation. And woven seamlessly right into these landmarks are these intense stories of redemption. Take the sacred river Viswamitra, for example. The source text casually mentions this epic micro-story about King Yayati. Yayati literally fell from heaven, but simply by dwelling among the virtuous on the banks of this specific river, he actually regained the eternal regions of the righteous once again. It's like the geography itself is an active participant in his spiritual recovery. All right, Section 4, Retreats of the Ascetics, Finding Success. So we're transitioning now from beautiful, sprawling landscapes to places of really intense, concentrated spiritual action. And this detail from the text is absolutely fascinating. At the famed asylum of Chyavana, it explicitly says, men attain ascetic success without severe austerities. I mean, think about that for a second. In a tradition where spiritual progress almost always requires immense, grueling physical discipline, this specific location offers a kind of ancient life hack. The environment literally does the heavy lifting, making spiritual success suddenly accessible. Dhaumya just keeps building momentum here by rattling off these additional power centers. We've got Jamvumarga, which is filled with birds, deer, and ascetics who have their souls completely under control. Then there's the exceedingly sacred Kitumala, Madhya, Gangajwara, and the woods of Saindava. And the text makes a huge point to note that these spaces are inhabited by the regenerate ones, basically spiritually reborn, enlightened individuals.
These aren't just empty forests. They are thriving communities deeply, deeply connected to the power of the land.
Which finally brings us to Section 5, Pushkara, the mental pilgrimage, the ultimate sanctuary.
We're going to slow the pace down here because we have officially arrived at the climax of our ancient map. Dhaumya brings the king to the celebrated tank of the creator called Pushkara. This is described as the absolute favorite abode of enlightened sages and celestial beings. It is presented as the undisputed pinnacle of these sacred Western spots. But what happens here in the text completely shifts our understanding of everything we just mapped out. The text reveals a verse sung by the creator himself right at Pushkara. And he says, "If a person of pure soul purposes a pilgrimage to the Pushkaras in imagination even, he becometh purged from all his sins and rejoiceth in heaven." Actually, let that profound twist land for a second. We have literally just spent this entire explainer tracking physical rivers, climbing towering physical mountains, and mapping out geographical asylums. And here, at the very end, the text flips the script entirely. And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate takeaway of the source material. Notice the stark contrast here on the screen. On the left side, we have the grueling physical pilgrimage, right? The long travel to the west, bathing in the Narmada, climbing up the Vaidurya peak. But on the right side, the mental pilgrimage, a pure soul using nothing but imagination and pure intention, achieving the exact same spiritual purification instantly. The physical map, as it turns out, was ultimately just a blueprint for the mind. It's just a completely stunning conclusion to an ancient text. The ultimate tirtha, the ultimate intersection of the physical and the spiritual, isn't actually on a map at all. It's in your intention. So I will leave you with this question to ponder today. If imagination alone can purge the soul, what sanctuary will you build in your own mind today?